we drove to a local comedy club. I tried to go in, and they're like, "No, kid, you got to be 21 and over to be in here." And my brother was like, like, "Hey, you're gonna see this guy's face one day."
I would love to know. I very intentionally did not look up the history of how this was all created. So when did you start doing comedy? Like, was this something you always dreamed about? Did you fall into it in your 20s? Was it when you were a kid? What's the story there?
The birth of the idea of me wanting to be a stand-up came when I was 10 years old.
Wow.
I was 10 years old. It was back in the day when I was a latchkey kid. Some
Same.
people don't know what that is. Yeah, that's, you're basically babysitting yourself.
I was babysat by Oprah every afternoon at 3 o'clock.
Nice.
Yeah, just turned on the TV and did that until mom got
I had a
home.
VCR.
Oh, okay.
I had a VCR.
Fancy.
So my mom would take me to the video store because back in the day, that's how you do it. There was no streaming. You had to go to to a location, and I'd rent movies.
Right. Were you
And
at
so-
Blockbuster? Was this?
Oh no, that was fancy.
I was gonna say.
This is way before Blockbuster,
Okay,
which says a lot. It was like some video store in the hood. It just said video store. Like it was basic. They didn't even try.
It was just like a guy's video.
Yes,
It wasn't
just,
even. Yeah.
just video store. It was one of those where it's like that has movies, and then like in one corner of the store there's hanging beads.
Yes,
and
the
like
back room.
The back room.
I
The
forgot about that
secret
till
back
just
room.
now, but you're right. And as a little kid, we'd be like, "What's
back
going
there?
on?" Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
you're like, get away from there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So anyway, I wound up renting Eddie Murphy Raw, which is probably not the best thing for a 10-year-old to be watching. But my mom, she's just like, get whatever you want to rent, go, you rent. And so I went and got that, and I forget what else I rented, but that was the comedy special that I saw that inspired everything.
That is hilarious. I've heard a lot of comics talk about that being sort of the thing that made them go, "Oh, damn," because he was just doing his own thing and it was so different than what was there. But I've never heard it as a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah, that was my babysitter, was Eddie Murphy. And I watched it over and over and over, and I was just like, wow, this is so cool. And I like that he did voices and characters, and that was what really drew me to what he did. And then I started mimicking Eddie Murphy, doing all these characters and voices and impressions and stuff. And next thing I know, I did a school talent show.
And how'd it go?
It went very well.
Oh, good.
It went very well. I was originally going to try to do like sketches with a friend, and then the friend at the last second backed out. And so they asked, well, you're by yourself. Is there something you can do by yourself? And I'm like, well, I do voices. Like, explain. And then I just started doing them, and they're like looking at me, and I'm like, is this going the way it's supposed to go? And they're like, are you available to come back? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. And so next thing I know, I was on the school talent show.
And how old were you then?
10.
Oh, still, this is all the
this
same
was,
time.
This was
Okay.
during, yeah. So I did the school talent show 2 years in a row.
Okay.
It's funny because the second year when I showed up for auditions, they're like, you're in.
You're
don't
in.
Don't worry
Just
about
go.
it.
Yeah. And when after that did you try and make this, like, I'm using air quotes, but like to be a professional comedian? Like, I'm actually getting paid money to make people laugh.
From the time that I had the idea to the time that I can say I was calling myself a comedian was 10 years. But it wasn't like I was trying for 10 years. It's just that I there was no way of doing it. Yeah. I'm a kid in school, and, all I knew back then. See, today you can go online and you can research and find if there's something out there, you can find it. Right. Whereas back then, it's like, we drove to a local comedy club. I tried to go in, and they're like, no, kid, you got to be 21 and over to be in here. And my brother was like, hey, you're gonna see this guy's face one day, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's so I was just waiting I was aging basically. I needed to be old enough
Age
to do
into
it.
the system.
Age into
Yeah.
the system.
Wow.
When I was 17, I got on the school speech team. And that was kind of in the vein where it allowed me to get in front of people. It allowed me to feel comfortable just talking and getting over that stage fright.
Yeah. Where'd you grow up?
Here in Long Beach.
Oh, in Long Beach.
Yes.
Okay, so we're still in.
I'm still, yeah.
your
I'm
hood.
not like
Okay.
Snoop. I didn't move. I started off here. I'm still here. I tried leaving and I got pulled back in.
That's
and so
awesome.
Yeah.
So you get old enough to go to a comedy club. The first time you go, are you absorbing it? Like you're in the audience, or you are on stage? I'm going to try this and see what happens.
So once I was old enough to actually be in a club, I still wasn't allowed to be in a club because you can't just call yourself a comedian and go in. You have to be referred. Someone has to know you. Someone has to, it was a word of mouth type of thing.
Right.
So the first place I was actually able to perform was a bar in Montebello here in California.
Totally.
And it was very sketch. And I wasn't even old enough to be in there, but since they had a comedy night, they would let me come in the back door, go on stage, do my thing, and then as soon as I get off the stage, outside.
Right.
So that's how they would let me perform, which I thought was cool.
Like, curious, when you started, were you well received? Was it funny? Was it awful? Like, how did it feel getting out on the stage for the first time?
April 10th, 1997 is the date.
To be specific.
Yeah, well, that's when everything, first kicked off. I got a chance to put my name basically in a hat at a place, and then, I was able to go up, and it went very well. I was surprised. It was only like 3 minutes, but it was just me doing what I did as a kid in high school. I was getting up in front of people and just doing impressions and characters. There was no real joke in there. It was just the fact that I could nail the voices.
Yeah.
That everybody was like, oh, that's cool. And so little by little, I just started making those voices do funny things.
Right.
And so in the beginning, I was very dirty. So I was all my cartoon characters. Everybody was having sex. It was very inappropriate, but it was funny.
Right.
And so I started building off of that.
Got it. And then you start going on the road? Do you stay here in Southern California?
What's crazy is that within 3 months, I was already working on the road.
Crazy.
The guy that was booking the bar, was established comedian and stuff like that. He was booking the opening acts on the road at a couple of different comedy clubs. And he's like, "Hey, kid, you got 15 minutes of time on you? You want to go on the road?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so my first show, I was doing Tucson, Arizona. I was opening up for a couple of other comedians. And that was awesome because I was able to do what I did in front of 2 established comics. And then those 2 established comics had their own comedy nights. And so it was like back then, it's like you go out, you do a show, somebody sees you, you exchange numbers,
Right.
you have conversations, you're social that way. And then from there, you're like, hey, I got a friend who does a thing over here. I got a friend who does a thing over there. And so you would save information and you'd make phone calls, and that's how you would, you'd get other gigs.
That's incredible. It's interesting. I've had a few conversations lately with artists, comedians, writers, where it sounds, not that it wasn't, you worked your butt off, you did all these things, but it sounds almost like it was like flow, like you went from one thing into another. Did it feel like I'm just sort of following my intuition and it's all working out? Or did it ever feel sort of clunky and like, why is this so hard? Or
it felt like, this is incredible. It felt like, this is like, wow, I am having so much fun.
Yeah.
I never made it about the money. I never made it about work. It was about, I just want to go up on stage. I want to make people laugh. I'm okay. So
Yeah.
I wasn't stressing about bills and stuff like that.
Were there bills to stress out?
There was bills, and there was a day job, so I didn't worry about that.
Got it.
I didn't make comedy the business. It was fun.
Yeah.
And so I was willing to do, if someone said, "Hey man, you want to do 10 minutes in Bakersfield, which is like a 2-hour drive from here?"
That's where I'm born and raised.
Okay,
Yeah.
Baco 661. What's up?
What's
so
up,
I would
Bakersfield?
so I would just drive out there for a 10-minute spot. That's how
Yeah.
hungry I was to
Yeah.
get up there, where it's like I didn't care.
Yeah.
It wasn't a money thing.
Yeah.
It was like, it's for the love of the stage and just wanting to do it.
Do you feel like that kid is still in you today?
I feel like he's in there, but unfortunately, because I've been doing this for over 25 years, I have to be reminded sometimes, because
Yeah.
I do get jaded, and I do get complacent, and I do get into a place where it's like, it feels like work.
Right. Yes.
And at a certain point, you do have to take it serious, and you do have to apply a business sense to it, because there's a lot of artists out there that are great artists, but they're shitty business people, and they have no idea how to manage their money. They have no idea how to get certain people in place to take care of certain things,
Yeah.
because you can't do everything. I firmly believe you need a great team in order to get you to where you need to be. Otherwise, you're just going to be like, you hear all these horror stories of all these great comics from back in the day, and they all had financial issues.
Yep.
They were all, in trouble with the IRS. They were all getting garnished. They were, back taxes and jail time. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
no,
Like, I
forget
did
that
not
noise.
work
No.
this hard to
Yeah, I
have
did.
that. Yeah.
So I very much had to grow up and learn how to make it a business.
Did you learn that the hard way? Like, did you have pitfalls, or were you pretty savvy from the beginning?
I feel very lucky that early on, because I understand what it was to have a regular job. I understood what it was like to have to manage your bills. I understood what it was like to get in over your head, and live beyond your means, and have to fall that way. And then,
Yeah.
all right, let's pick up the pieces, and how do we manage this better? What do we do to not get ourselves back into that same situation? And it was one of those where when you see money starting to double, then you got to be careful, because then you got to be extra mindful. And then when you watch it double again, you got to like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
You can't just say, wee, because eventually someone's going to come knocking on your door.
Right.
And so there was that initial where, comedy started doing very well, and money came in at a rate where I was like not used to it.
Yeah.
And it was overwhelming. And of course I was young. And so I
Right.
did go out and make my stupid purchases, had my fun. And then, when you're looking at a few audits, and Uncle Sam's like, yeah, you can't write off all that Jack in the
Right.
Box. You really should start
Those two
behaving
tacos
better.
for 99 cents are not part of your
Yeah.
job.
So there, I was savvy to an extent until I got to a place where I did need help. And fortunately, there was people there that were, hey man, what are you doing with yourself? I kind of see what's going on here. Maybe you should talk to this person. Maybe you should talk to that person. And even though I feel like I was able to outgrow those situations and those relationships because the business was just growing so quickly, I did learn every single step of the way.
Yeah.
So everything was a lesson.
You said you've been doing this 25 years. At what point do you feel like you hit a day where you were like, oh, damn, like this is a thing? People know me. They recognize me on the street. I'm making this money. I'm getting these specials. Like, it seems like if you're not following your career, it's so easy to be like, oh, yeah, he's come up in the last 5 years. And you're like, I've been doing this for decades. So at what point did it start to swing in a way that you felt like this is like me the rest of my life? This is what I'm doing.
I want to say that was from the get. Once I quit my day job, which happened in the I'd say about year 3, year like mid to the beginning of 3, is when I said, you know what, I'm going for it.
Yeah.
It was a little premature because again, I had a day job, and then I went full blown on, let me just try to make this comedy thing work. And I ran out of money so fast, and I got evicted. They were looking for my car. I wound up sleeping at my brother's house, and then moving in with my sister. And everyone kept saying, go back and get your job. You're not ready to be a comic yet. And I'm like, no, you got to go in all the way.
Yep.
or don't do it.
Yeah.
And so that was that learning right there. That was that, like, how bad do you want it?
Right.
I think I needed that test to see, am I really willing to sacrifice and go for it?
And what did that sacrifice look
Ooh,
like?
it was ugly. It was ugly. It was so ugly. Oh my God. I ate so much top ramen.
That's a 99-cent store special, man. Living off whatever they had to offer.
I was very lucky that my sister had taken me in and allowed me to chase this dream. Every day she'd just look at me and go, she'd go, get a real job.
Yeah. Come on.
But she'd see me on the phone. I'd be making phone calls, and again, you had to be very social. You had to maintain relationships. You couldn't do anything on a cell. There was no app back then. There was no, you couldn't go Google stuff. You had to go to a store and God, let me see, where do you start? You had to do a set somewhere, have someone record it, have it put on a VHS tape, then find a location where they could duplicate those VHS tapes, and then research and find comedy clubs, mail those tapes to those clubs, and then call those clubs to make sure they receive the tape, follow up, and then see if the person, manager, booker saw it, was interested, and then, there were so many steps back then.
Yeah. You had to be your own
You had to be
management
your
team.
own everything. And so
Yeah.
it was a lot of time on the phone. And like I said, my sister was very patient with me because I ran up a lot of long distance.
Right.
That was the thing
Isn't
back
it
then.
crazy that
Yeah.
we used to have to pay for a long distance phone call and now you can call China right now with 0 problems?
Yeah.
It's absolutely
I'm pretty
wild.
sure there's problems if you call China. Someone's going to find
Yeah, you're
they're
right.
like,
You're right. Good
why
point.
Why are you calling China?
Why is she doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you had to be your own manager. You had to be your own advocate. And on some level, I can't imagine how much that prepared you for what was coming. Like if you've established those foundations on your own, how much better you would be able to like tap into a team.
It taught you back then how to, the business part.
Right.
Again, I didn't have a manager, an agent back then that would make all those phone calls and do all that work, so that all I had to do was show up and just be funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
now,
the fact that I had
do
to
you get
learn
just
from the
show
ground
up
up.
and be funny?
Now I get to show up and be funny, which
Right.
is great. But I love the fact that I had to learn everything from the get. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're working at a restaurant and you start off as the guy that's just taking out the trash, then you're clearing tables, and you're moving up until eventually you're running the business.
Absolutely.
You know every single position.
Yeah. And was it a pretty steady climb in terms of awareness of what you were doing? So like you just kept getting like bigger and bigger gigs over time to get to this place where we're now at Dodger Stadium? Like what does that trajectory look like? Was it just straight, or was it like 2 steps forward, 1 step back?
There was always times when like in the beginning I had to make all my calls and do everything, and then I had management, and then the management had it was their first time managing. But they had relationships in the business, and so certain things started happening. But again, you get to a place where it's plateaued and what's going on, and then there's frustration and what's going to happen, and then sometimes you part ways, and sometimes things get better. And in my case, we parted ways, and then started going in different directions.
Yeah.
You take chances. I firmly believe you have to take chances and be willing to fail in order to get to where you want to get. So there was a few years of growing pains, and then of course, money would come in, money would go out, and then learning, hey, all right, I got a little in over my head this year, I might want to start acting right or do this, that. So there was always constantly work, but there was also learning, because there was, I'd take chances. I'd put myself out there.
Take chances in terms of like, I'm going to fund my own tour.
Take chances as in like, yeah, I'm gonna buy these CDs, because at the time CDs were the thing, and so like I'm gonna invest in a recording of myself, and I'm gonna invest in purchasing bulk units and storing them in a closet, and then take them on the road and sell them, and instead of parting with that money, I gotta save that money, reinvest it, create a new recording, or purchase more, or find something else to supplement whatever it was that I was doing.
Absolutely.
And so when I say, oh, you got to bet on yourself, that's what I mean. It's like, be willing to invest in yourself and sacrifice the fun, because you're going to want to have fun, because you're going to see how easy it is once the ball starts moving.
Right.
There was a time when I had 2 Hummers. About 2 freaking Hummers. Who the hell needs 2 Hummers? Who needs 1 Hummer?
You and Schwarzenegger.
So
it.
I bought 2 Hummers, and I was living in a
2 Hummers.
And for the record, I didn't even have a house. I was living in an apartment, and I'd parked 2 freaking Hummers on the street. That's where my head was at.
That is,
Where my head
such
was
a bro move.
It
is such a bro move.
I was 24, 25 years old.
And honestly, like a lot of 25-year-old boys.
So I don't get mad
that.
whenever I see, like, for example, these boxers that are, they come into millions, and then they're just buying stupid shit. And I'm like,
we get it.
And you're seeing it, and you're like, oh man, I can't believe because then I see myself. I'm like, I can't believe I did that shit.
Yeah.
Well, they're taking a Hummer to a taco shop. Could have gotten robbed so many times. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Oh my
so
God.
It's like,
yeah,
I'm lucky that nothing happened.
Right. Well, it's also sort of like you come into this success, and you're sort of like, what do I do with this?
There's no playbook. There's no
playbook.
For example, and not saying that it works, but at least like in Major League Baseball or the NFL, they'll have programs where when these athletes are about to sign a big contract, they'll at least put them in a little class or a little thing where they'll try to let them know, hey, you're about to receive a lot of money. Think about how to invest it properly so that you don't set your money on fire.
Right.
Like to try to just give you a little bit of guidance.
Absolutely.
But as a comic, There's no classes. Like, you mean you're not supposed to have two Hummers? I thought that was,
That's
I'm
the
learning.
dream.
I'm learning what to
That's the
buy because
dream.
at the time I'm watching MTV and they're still playing music videos on MTV, and so I'm watching all these rap videos, and I'm
Right.
like, that's what I
That's
need.
what's happening on
I need
Cribs.
shiny stuff on the
Yeah.
car. That's and like, oh my god. And so yeah, one of the Hummers got stolen. They took anything shiny on it was taken away.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, I didn't claim it on my insurance. I didn't tell the insurance company, oh, by the way, I pimped it out. I was like, no, it's stock. It's stock. So once they stole the car, they're like, okay, your car is stock, and that's what we're going to give
Here's
you money for.
$12.
And I'm like, yeah, here's exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So there was a lot of learning.
Right.
A lot of learning.
And post two Hummers, we're through that stage.
I was like, oh yeah, I learned my lesson. Now I have like 80 cars.
Right. I was like, I did walk in. They're amazing, though. I will say, like, I was not anticipating walking in here and seeing that. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
It's about 150 Hummers. Now,
I know.
I know.
I tell everybody it's a Jay Leno starter kit.
Yes, there you go.
Because Jay's the one that got me into collecting cars.
Did he really?
Yes.
How did that come to be?
Well, I had gotten invited to Jay's garage many years ago, and I had been on the Tonight Show a few times, and so I already knew Jay, and so we were just walking around, and he's giving me a tour, and he started asking me questions. He goes, so yeah, what are you doing with your money? You doing okay? Then you working more? And I'm like, yeah, I'm working more. He's like, what are you doing? Well, and I was telling him, like, oh well, people are telling me I should do this with my money. People are telling me I should do that with my money, and I should do this and that, and he goes, well, basically like the car thing. He says if you buy classic cars, you can enjoy your investment, and when you decide to sell it, if you decide to sell it, you'll make money on it.
Oh, really?
And I was just like, okay. But again, it's also a learning thing where depending on what car you get, and
Right.
so you have to be, savvy of the what's popular and what's not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I chose one that's very popular, which
Yeah.
is Volkswagens.
Did you get these? Were they as beautiful as they are now? Oh, so you buy you?
Oh, all these cars, yeah. They
Really?
started off one way and now they're that way.
No way. That's so sick.
Yeah.
And is it like you have a person that you use every time to do the remodels, or
It sound
what?
cliche, but I got a guy.
You got a guy.
I
You
got a guy.
Okay, you got a guy here in Long Beach.
Locally, yes.
Okay.
So, fortunately, the guy who's incredible when it comes to mechanical and engine work lives very close by, and the person who's responsible for making the buses look beautiful and restoration is also local. So I
Wow.
got two people that are close by.
That's amazing. Do you feel like it's like a tattoo? Like once you get one, you can't stop?
You know what? I've never gotten a tattoo. I've got stretch marks, but they
Me
keep
too.
I keep adding. I keep adding. So yeah, I've outgrown the space.
Yeah. So is this the full collection, or is there like a secret
There's
bunker?
still about 8 more that
Oh,
are not
wow.
here.
And do you think you'll stay with the VW? Is that like yours?
No. I mean
Okay.
that's the preference, but
Yeah.
no, I got a couple other
Yeah.
cars that I'm messing
Do you
with.
actually drive them?
When possible.
Okay.
They're all drivable.
Okay. It's like in Bodyguard, where if you drive a car and people know it's you, you run the risk of, getting attacked.
It is a thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, the buses, I keep them local, so it's
Yeah.
not like I'm taking them to San Diego or
Right.
driving them to Bakersfield, going
Right.
to the Grapevine and
Yeah.
stalling out or something.
Right.
I keep everything very close by.
Okay. Very cool. Sorry, we went off on
Oh,
a
no,
car
that-
tangent. But Jay Leno says, cars, here's an option.
His car guys became my car guys.
Oh,
So then I
nice.
started talking to them. And,
The best car guys. Yeah.
at the time, they're like, if you're looking for something, let us know. We'll help you find it. And I was trying to get a Christmas present for my then girlfriend. I wanted to get her first car. Not the actual one, but a replica of what her first car was.
Cool.
And those guys did it in 2 days.
What
And
was the
so-
car?
It was a Trans Am.
Okay.
And so I didn't have anywhere to put it. And Jay was nice enough to let me keep it there at his place until Christmas time.
All right.
And then I wound up taking my girlfriend there on Christmas, gave a big tour of Jay Leno's garage, and then, oh, by the way, Merry Christmas. And so I told the guys, I go, hey, man, that's cool. You guys found that car. I go, they said, well, if you're looking for anything else. And I said, well, how about a Volkswagen? And I was very, detailed with the year and stuff like that. And sure enough, they called me a few days later, and they had one.
How amazing.
And they said, well, if you want anything else, let us know. And I said, well, if you come across another one, let me know.
Yeah.
And one turned into 2, turned into 10, and yeah, you see what happens.
Yeah. How long have you been collecting them?
7 years.
7 years. Okay.
Actually, 8 years now.
When did you get your first special? like it's on, and forgive me for not knowing whether it was Netflix or HBO or whatever. When did
My
that first happen?
my first comedy special was actually a Comedy Central half-hour special. I
Okay.
want to say that was 2000.
Okay. So 23 years ago,
Yeah.
you get this special. Are you like crapping your pants? Like, oh my, this is my moment. I'm about to do this. Like, how did that feel?
It felt like if I died the next day, I'd be a happy camper because I'm like, wow.
Oh,
You know,
that's
just to say
cool.
that I had my special. I took my whole family with me to New
Yeah.
York because we filmed there. I want to say it was the Hudson Theater, and I remember we were just, it was only 30 minutes,
Yeah.
but like it was a Comedy Central special.
Yes.
And yeah, I just, they played the hell out of that special, and so from that, I got a couple of other, opportunities to do work with Comedy Central.
Yeah. And this is so terrible, and we can edit this out because I don't mean this as a rude question, but is Comedy Central still relevant?
Comedy Central is
Like, it's still on television now?
it's still on.
That's
Comedy
terrible
Central
that I didn't know
is
that.
still on. No, it's okay. If comedy's not your thing,
No, I mean, growing up, Comedy Central was the thing. That's where you'd watch comics late at night. It was
South
like,
Park.
right, that sort of stuff. But I just haven't seen it in so long. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I think the goal is always like now is going to be Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's if you don't not doing Netflix, Amazon, or doing something independently. There's a lot of platforms where you can just do your own thing. But Comedy Central definitely was the place to be in the early 2000s.
Yeah, for sure. And now, I mean, no big deal. You're just doing a Netflix special at Dodger Stadium.
Crazy, right?
That's insane. How did that feel?
I'm still processing because
Yeah.
it's like that night itself was so it's surreal. It's surreal. It's like every movie where you see someone in front of a stadium and it's that noise that like because I'm used to being in a club and you hear hey
Yeah. That one guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so to hear a roar, it's like wow.
What
It's
was the
powerful.
biggest thing you had done before Dodger Stadium?
Let me see. I had actually had an opportunity to do 15 minutes at a football stadium in Florida called Gator Growl. I opened up for Jim Gaffigan way back in the day, and it was for like a homecoming type of thing. And so it was a football stadium, but I mean, again, there was a lot of different events and activities and things going on. But they did have a comedy night, and it was starring Jim Gaffigan, and I got to open for him. And so that was the biggest audience I had been in front of. And I want to say it was somewhere between 40 and 50,000 people that were there for
Wow.
that. But I mean, just touring every night in front of anywhere between 10 to 15,000 people at arenas.
Mm-hmm.
So I was used to performing and doing big shows.
To a large group, yeah.
But there is a difference between, a club to a theater to a bigger theater to an arena, and then arena to stadium, because like
Absolutely.
the timing and just like wow, it's
Was that your idea to do that venue or someone on your team? Like, where did the idea for Dodger Stadium come from?
the idea for Dodger Stadium came from a guy at Netflix named Robbie Pra. He's the one in charge of comedy. So anytime a comedy special gets done, he's the guy that green lights it and makes it happen. He came from Just for Laughs. He used to be in Canada with the comedy festival, and Netflix got him. Cool, very cool dude. He approached us with the idea. It was perfect timing because I had already played Staples Center, now Crypto. I can't stand that name, but anyway, yeah. So I had already played Staples Center a couple times, and we were trying to figure out, all right, well, what are we gonna do next? How can we top that? Do we add a show? Do we go play the Forum? What do we do next? And so, also factoring in COVID, it kept me off the road for a while. It had been a couple years since I'd done LA proper, and so between that and COVID, it was almost 3 years. So we get a phone call, and originally it was just going to be what do you think about having this Dodger Stadium thing as part of the comedy festival they were going to do in Los Angeles for Netflix as a joke. That was the name of the comedy festival. I don't like the name Netflix as a joke. It's horrible. Sorry, Robbie, you can't hit all home runs. But no, it's so they wanted to have a big show to close the festival, and so the idea of Dodger Stadium came up. And what do you think? And based on the amount of shows that I've done at fairs, locally in LA or in Staples Center plays, and you know, mathematically, does it make, if they got behind it and promoted it, could it be successful? And so we're like, you know what, we like the idea. And at that time, I was getting ready to shoot a new special in San Antonio, and it was during COVID, and the idea was to do 30 shows in 30 days so that we could stay in a COVID bubble and not travel and keep the same people around us. And so I had not done stand-up in over a year, and I needed to do sets to get my timing back, but I figured a month worth of shows, I'll be good because I already had the material. And so day 27, while being there in San Antonio, I got sick with COVID.
No.
And so we had to cancel all production. Netflix, everybody had to go home. Everything just canceled. So we're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So what I said, well, you know what? Let's see if maybe, because I'm going to need to record a special at some point. So then I pitched the idea to them. How about we do that Dodger Stadium show and we make it a special? This way it'll be more, more reason for people to want to come out and see it and support it. And so they're like, all right. So it was kind of like, it was their idea, but then it was my idea. Like, let's turn this lemon into lemonade that just happened because I was supposed to knock out that special there in San Antonio.
So did you ever have a moment of like, holy crap, like, can we do this? Will it sell? Or are you just someone who's like, nope, it's happening. It will happen. I will manifest.
I think my
thing.
management was more nervous than anybody else. They're like, they're great, but they're also very calculated, and they want to make sure that, hey, Gabe, I get that, Gabe. When you hear that tone, it's like, all right, they're about to freaking get.
they're gonna dream crush me right now.
Here we go.
Yeah, but you were never worried.
It's not that I was worried. It's just that I wasn't gonna let them influence me to not want to do it.
Yeah.
Because I figured no other time has my career been where it's at. And I think that if I'm ever going to try to do something like this or try to jump to that next level, it has to be now. And I feel like all the stars lined up. And again, the fact that Netflix already thought that was a possibility. They have all the numbers and all the algorithms, and so they see all that stuff that they don't let out to the public. So I think, they already knew.
Right.
They already knew that, hey, if we're going to bet on somebody to pull this one off, that I was a good, I was a good bet.
That's amazing. And you said you're still processing that it happened.
Yeah, because it was so big, it's so different. And it's like, I spent my childhood going there. It's not some random venue. It's Dodger Stadium.
Yeah.
It's local. I've driven by it probably 500 times since that night.
Yeah.
And every time I drive by, I get that little tickle, like my God,
That's amazing.
And what I think is great too is that every time I see somebody with a Dodger shirt and I get recognized somewhere, I go, hey, Dodger shirt, and they're like, yeah, and they point at me because like. Now I'm associated with that.
That's so
I'm associated with that, and everybody brings it up, and it's awesome. Like I'll run into other comedians, and the first thing they say is, "Man, how was that?"
That's awesome.
And the fact that it was documented, and at the end of that night, on stage, I let it be known. I go, in not so many words, this is the best night of my, not only of my career, but of my life, and it's being documented, and it's like. It was just like, wow. And so I did 2 hours according to Netflix, and then I did about another hour of celebrating on stage, and the crowd didn't leave. And so just hanging out. I'm still paying the fines because, yeah.
You got fined?
I got fined.
Oh, because you went over.
Yeah, I didn't just go over. It was like we woke up at Dodger Stadium. It was obscene,
You were what? You guys were like listening to music. You're dancing.
Oh,
it
was the end of my set. I said, thank you, good night. But then I stayed up there, and I said, you guys, can I hang out?
Yeah.
And that was one of those where it wasn't just a show, it was a celebration. And I think everybody saw that. Like, it was all these years that led up to this moment. Yes. And there were so many people that were at that show that night that had been to other shows. I'm a hometown kid. And so it's like, it's not just some one-off, it's not Lady Gaga at some random stadium,
right?
Somewhere. No disrespect to Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
She could do that all day, every day. But for this comic, this homegrown kid to be doing this show it was like, wow, one of us made it.
Yeah, and it's like on some level, I think there's an ownership in the audience of like we were at those shows when it was 100 people, and now we're here in the stadium, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
That was the first thing I told the audience. I go, we did it.
Yeah.
So
That's
it
incredible.
was beautiful. And
Well,
yeah, that was my favorite hangover of all time.
God, I never
next
thought
day.
about that. What's the best hangover? You did it as yourself too. Like you really did it as yourself. You could look at your comedy. It's not impersonating anybody else. It's not like, oh, he's trying to do that thing. You are uniquely you. Did you always feel confident to show up as yourself on stage? Was that something, is that the way you were raised? Like, where does that come from?
That took a while because originally, like I said, I was just doing characters and voices, and I wasn't really being me. It was just me doing impressions and voices, and like, oh, he's really good at that. So it took a minute for me to find my voice, I guess, if that's what they say, where I started incorporating stories into my set. And what I wound up doing was I would just tell stories about myself and then add the magic of the sound effects and the characters to be able to create this story.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started doing. And so now it's like that's just the process.
Yeah.
Something happens, and then all right, let me go up there, grab the mic, and let me see what kind of spin I can put.
And do you feel like you're still sort of in the same way that you were back in the day, just like open to where this journey is taking you? Or do you personally have strategy of your like, and now we're going here?
I find that if I overthink and I plan too hard, it doesn't work out the way that I'd like.
Yeah.
So I mean, I I have ideas of like, okay, well, I can try this or go in this direction, but it's real light, so I'm not, I pencil things in,
Yeah.
so it's not too
Yeah.
concrete.
Do you have an intention or a goal for 2023?
Well, this year, to have fun, because after that Dodger Stadium show, I felt like there was so much pressure to make it happen, and then it did happen, and then it's like the conversation is, all right, what do we do? What now? And so it's like, aren't I supposed to feel relief now? Can I celebrate?
Yeah.
Can I do a victory lap? And so it's like, so
It's
I
an
have
interesting thing about this industry, media in general, or music, or any of it, that you have to, and I'm using air quotes, but like keep striking while the iron's hot, which means that inevitably I think so many artists get burnt out because you're not allowed to like feel it or sit in it.
exactly.
And but it's like, oh, but you're hot right now, so keep going. Do you feel the pressure to keep going? Or are you like,
Always,
yeah,
always, because
yeah,
I have a lot of people that I are part of this, and so it's like, okay, but at the same time too, if I'm not having fun on stage, it shows.
yeah,
And then every week there's a weekly conversation of like everybody gets on the call. We all get on a Zoom call. We started doing that during COVID, and we just talk about the week and talk about what's going on and what went right, what didn't go right, what can we do better, and it's just a weekly thing. So we're all communicating, and I just started saying, I'm tired, guys, And eventually, I had to scare everybody and pull out a blood pressure machine and be like, "This is my blood pressure right now."
Oh,
And I'm showing the number. Like,
yeah,
this is my blood pressure right now.
yeah.
Can we take a little breather? And so for the next 6 months, I said, I just want to do comedy clubs. I want to go back to the most simple, just have fun. I show up to a comedy club. It's turnkey. I get there. You want some nacho? You want soda? Who's going up? What's the name? Okay. And it's just fun. And I get to just have fun and create and not worry about the pressure of having to deliver a massive show. It's just
Good for you.
people are excited that they can see me in a very intimate setting. And I've had people come recently to shows and they're like, I was at Dodger Stadium. And I'm like, these seats are way better, huh?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I can see you.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So at least 6 months, and then it'll give me enough time to put together a brand new show. Hopefully, between now and I guess July, because they're ready. They're ready to start booking another arena tour.
Yeah, you seem, and you can tell me if I'm incorrect, but you seem very chill.
It's a comfy couch. It's a very comfy couch.
No, but I mean, I sit with a lot of people. I have a lot of friends who have built incredible careers for themselves. And I feel like the overwhelming energy, especially post-COVID, is this like anxiety of, I have to be producing. I'm not producing enough. I'm still burnt out. I can't. And they feel, you seem settled, like it's still going to be there. I know who I am. I know what it is that I've done. I have this fan base. Is that
That sounds right.
expectation accurate? Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I still every day I'm like, okay, what can we do today? And I know that I could be involved in so many other things, but at the same time, I'm like, I need to start being involved with myself
Yeah, that's
and
great.
have a little more fun. Normally, like I said, there'd be dogs right here right now. My dogs are always with me.
Yeah.
They're at the vet right now, but I take my dogs with me on the road. I take them with me, and that's my little getaways, my little fur kids.
Yeah. What does fun for you look like this year? Do you have ideas about how that shows up?
My idea of fun now, I'm 46 years old, and I just love getting in the car and taking a drive, setting a nice playlist, and then just driving. And I usually do this at night. So, if someone runs, thinks that it's me, like I think I just saw Fluffy at, a drive-through, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning. It's probably
him.
probably
Yeah,
me.
it's definitely him.
I love taking late night drives because there's no traffic.
Yeah, you're in
and
LA.
I'm in LA,
Yeah.
and I could just go.
Right. What's on the playlist?
I love the Eagles, and I'm actually gonna go
Oh.
see the Eagles next month.
Oh, wow. Where are they playing?
They are playing at Thunder Valley Casino, and the only reason I know is because I'm playing Thunder Valley Casino, and so that's how they got me to do it, because they just built this new room there, and the promoter's like, hey man, do you want to Personally, I never liked this casino. I never liked the venue. I never liked the setup because it was just it felt like it was very uncomfortable. It was outdoors. It's next to a train track, and so you're in the middle of your set, and then freaking
You're like, thank you.
and they would do that shit on purpose just to mess. They
Yeah.
know they're like, watch
That
this,
sucks.
and I'd probably do the same thing too. So I get it. And then there's planes and helicopters and bugs, and you got to deal with the weather, and so it was never fun. And even though the pay was amazing, I call them hoe gigs because you're just hoeing yourself out right there. But eventually they built a new indoor venue, and they said, hey, look, we'd like to see about you coming and performing at this venue. And I'm like, I don't know. And they're like, well, the Eagles are performing there the week before you, and Bruno Mars is going to be performing there.
Oh, wow.
And Santana. So I'm like, all right.
Fine.
So then I said, all right, I'll go, but I want Eagles tickets. And
Absolutely.
then I told my management I want that weekend off so I can go up there and see the Eagles. And so I'm
Have
gonna
you
make
ever
it a whole
seen
thing.
them before?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What number concert is this for you?
This is gonna be 3.
Okay. What was your favorite one out of the 2 you've seen?
The first one I saw them at the
Yeah.
Forum, and
Yeah.
Glenn Fry was still alive, and I also saw them in Las Vegas.
Very
so
cool.
this will be my first time seeing them since
Wow. Are you a big music fan? Is like concerts? Is that a big part?
I
of
love
your-
concerts.
Yeah.
Oh man, I went to go see Adele in Vegas a few weeks ago.
How was that?
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. And then when you're watching Adele, you got to play that game where how tough are you? How long can you hold out before she gets you? Because she will eventually get you. You start
Like you're
off.
gonna cry.
Yeah.
Okay.
You start off tough. You're like, yeah, whatever. I'm here for her. I'm here for her. Whatever. Yeah. And then sure enough, she'll get to one of them
Yeah.
songs that just hits, and you're like, you'll feel
Yeah.
it. I gotta go pee. I'll be
Right.
back. I'll be back. And then you're in the bathroom and they're still playing the music. The concert continues. And so it's like, oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
But one of the best concerts I've ever seen.
No way.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. Adele gets down. I've seen her twice. Once at Staples, and now she has residency
In
at
Vegas.
Caesar's Palace.
Yeah. To be honest, I have never seen her because, I mean, her voice is amazing, but I honestly thought it might be a little bit of a dull show because it's just sort of ballads.
Her stage show
Okay.
is wow.
Okay.
It
Okay.
really is super
All
impressive.
right. I appreciate that.
And
direction.
as a show person, let me tell
Yeah.
you, I'm the entire time I'm like, oh, I gotta copy some of this shit.
Yeah.
Look what she's doing on the walls. I mean, because that venue, it allows for you to do so much in there, and she's putting on a stadium show inside of a big theater.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So the amount of visual square footage she takes up in that room
She uses
with the show,
it.
yes, it is
That's
a
amazing.
great show.
That's amazing. What do you feel like? Have you seen that Madonna's going on tour?
I saw that. I'll go check her out.
Yeah, same. We were
I'll go
talking
I'll
about
go
it last
check
night.
her
We were
out.
like, oh man, I want it to be Madonna. And I'm a little nervous that I'll go and be like, oh, it's Madonna doing Madonna. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't mean
A sh-
that.
a sh-
Like, she's just an icon. It's always scary when you go see an icon. Sometimes you're disappointed, and sometimes you're like, oh, this is why you are who you are, because you're forever this great. But yeah, I was like,
I'll go.
okay.
I'll go check her out for
Yeah,
sure.
right? We have to. We have to know.
There's certain people that I'm like, no matter what, if they're doing a show, I
Yeah.
want to see it. Like I got to see Paul McCartney
Same.
recently at
Yep.
SoFi, and
Yeah.
you would think that at a big venue, and
Amazing.
you know, so I've seen Paul McCartney a few times, and one
Yeah.
of those times was at Dodger Stadium.
Oh, sick. That's so sick. I got to see him this last summer when he was sort of making up those dates, and literally just sat in front and wept violently while Blackbird played, and just was like, "What is my life?"
Funny.
Have you ever
Sorry.
seen Eric Clapton?
I've never seen Eric Clapton, but
Okay.
I imagine he's also
It's
another one.
unbelievable. I saw him 20 years ago at Staples, and then just saw him again when he was on tour, and sort of thought, it's been 20. I saw the best I'll ever see him, and then better. I'm not exaggerating. Better. It's like a fine wine. Like, he's better than he's ever been. He is a musician's musician. Like, he's there to jam. He's not really trying to perform for the audience. It seems like he's just with 10 of his friends, like just hanging out in his basement, like playing music.
How cool is that, right?
So sick. So I highly recommend. Sorry, I got off on a
No,
tangent.
definitely.
Music's my favorite. I'm
Yeah.
always curious. Like,
So to answer your question, yes, I love music.
okay, great.
I wish I could have seen Tom Petty.
Oh, dude, it is my biggest regret in my life
wish I
is
could
that
have
I
seen
did
Tom
not
Petty.
see him perform. I literally almost wore a Tom Petty vintage T-shirt today. It would have been amazing.
He seems like one of those guys that would have lived forever. You know, it's like, really?
Same. Yeah. So sad. Before my time, certainly, but like, I also would have loved to have seen Bowie. That feels
David
like,
Bowie,
yeah, it feels like it would have been the greatest concert of all time. Like an artist, a true artist.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to stop being a dork,
Nice.
dork over music. Have you ever seen Beyonce, though?
I've never seen her perform
Dude.
live. I've only seen, videos and stuff.
I will battle to the death that there is no greater performer living today than Beyonce. You will not regret it. Your life will be changed. You have to see her. She's about to go on tour again. You have to see her. It's literally like she has all these backup dancers that cycle out because nobody can keep up with her. She's just going so hard. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
stop being a dork. I respect so much when you can tell that the artist fucking cares. She's Beyonce. She doesn't have to be. She could sit on a stool and we would all be like, yeah, it's Beyonce. And she still seems like she's going as hard as when she started with Destiny's Child. And I just respect that so much. So I'm going to stop.
I'm gonna
about
check her
music.
out. You
Please.
sold her show.
You have to, whatever she does, it's going to be the right thing. And I want to be conscious. We have a few more minutes before you have to bounce out of here. But I'm curious. I wanted to ask, it seems like you have taken really your own path into the comedy space. Like, are you, a lot of times when you see comics sort of coming up, they're all hanging out with each other. They're like, they're all having dinners together and they sort of come up. But at least from the outside, it sort of seems like you've gone on your own
Didn't
trajectory.
do that.
You did, okay.
You know what? I think that it's good and it's also bad because like when everybody's around each other like that was the case early on when I was at the bars and the dive spots, and it's like, okay, so you had no choice. But once I started working and doing my own thing, I try not to get involved in cliques and groups because there are cliques and groups out there. And so if you went to the Comedy Store, went to the Laugh Factory, there was comics that like it was groups, and these would the people that would hang out together. And same thing, like I remember at the Comedy Store there was the Andrew Dice Clay clique, the Joe Rogan clique, the Eddie Griffin clique. There was, were you an improv guy, or were you a Comedy Store guy, were you a Laugh Factory guy? It's like it was
It's like high school. Yeah.
And so I just love the fact that once I got out on the road and was able to stay out on the road, I didn't have to worry about being part of, these groups where sometimes it's good where you motivate each other and you push, and then sometimes I feel like everybody's sabotaging each other, trying to claw their way out of there.
Yeah.
And so I never wanted to let anyone else's dreams or what they wanted influence me. Automatically, as a comic back in the day, you were conditioned to want a HBO 1 hour special. You wanted to do the Tonight Show. You wanted to have a sitcom. Those are all the things that were pre-programmed based on ideas of comedy back then. You want that 1 hour special. You want to do the Tonight Show. You want to have a sitcom because you want to be able to build an audience that'll come out to see you. That was the goal. You want to build this audience to come out to see you. So the fact that I came along at a time when the internet was just starting to take off, and then eventually getting involved with in putting my content on YouTube for the world, and a lot of times comics would get upset. This was during the time when like Metallica was getting mad that Napster was putting their music out, and that people were sharing too much content, and that people weren't being compensated for their art form and what they did, and everyone was so focused on the money that was being lost. Whereas I says, you know what? I'd rather have people sharing my content, because all it's going to do is promote me and get my name out there. I'll make money when I go on tour. So I encouraged people to please share my content. If you love it, because a lot of times people were just reporting accounts and stuff like that. I'm like, nah, share the shit out of it,
Yeah.
please. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I feel like that really helped me a lot
Yeah.
to get to that next place.
Well, it also feels like
And
it's more,
and other people would have been like, nah, man, you're losing money. Yeah, you're doing this and
Yeah.
that. Because again, comics, when the comics are all together in groups and everyone's talking, I just feel like,
yeah.
someone needs to be the one that says, all right, the leader of it, and then be like, okay, unless they're doing better than everyone else,
Yeah.
then everyone just needs to,
Yeah.
all right, just stop.
But I hate to use this as such a buzzy, lame word, but like you've built a brand. It's not, walking in here, I was like, where am I going right now? And they were like, oh, we do all of the merch ourselves. Everything is handled in-house, because you care about the quality of what's going out to the audience. And it sounds like you've always sort of been about the audience as opposed to how does this benefit me, which feels different than maybe some other people who are in the space, that you're like here for the fans.
If you take care of people, people will take care
Amen.
of you. It's very easy.
But what made you decide to like do all the, there's a bunch of like
the
bobblehead
the
dolls.
brand, the branding, all that started many years ago when took on the nickname, the Fluffy nickname, because originally it was just a joke in the set. And so the idea was, my last name is Iglesias. It's already a famous name. Okay, a couple people have rocked that name and they've been very successful with it. I says, all I got to do is make the first name famous. And I figured Gabriel is not a common name, especially amongst comedians. There's only been one other famous Gabriel, and that was Gabe Kaplan, that really stood out. Had a sitcom, a show back in the day, Welcome Back, Kotter. And so there wasn't another Gabriel out there that was doing comedy that was popular. And so I says, I just got to work on Gabriel. And in my set, I had a joke about, I'm a big guy, and I complained to my mom that I was fat, and she's like, you're not fat, you're fluffy, mijo. And so it was that bit about calling myself fluffy, in which case I only said it like one time in the bit. But at the end of the show, whenever I'd see people, and that was another thing too, after my show I would stay and thank every single person that came out. I'd stand by the door, and so when they're walking out, thanks for coming by, I appreciate, thank you, hope you had a good time. And sometimes people would have cameras with them. This was before cell phones could do it. So people would have a physical camera, and so I'd take a picture or just sign something. So they would come up to me and they'd say, good job, Fluffy. And I'm like, really?
Like,
it was one joke.
Dang.
And I was so annoyed, because I'm like, why can't they say Gabriel? Why can't they say, the Iglesia? It was always Fluffy. And I got so tired and I was so annoyed, but I didn't want to drop the joke because it was a good joke. And so I just eventually learned to embrace it. And I made it a thing where every single thing I did, I incorporated the word fluffy. And I branded it so hard, so early on, where if you go online, and I tell people all the time, it's the Fluffy Challenge. Google the word fluffy. And I own the word. I'm the first thing that will pop up. I beat out cats, quilts, comforters, cotton candy, anything fluffy. I am first globally.
Oh my God.
So I branded it that hard back then, and I stayed consistent. I think a lot of times too, I learned a lot from pro wrestling.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan
Okay.
of pro wrestling, and so they're always coming out with new characters and wrestlers, and just they'll have gimmicks about a certain personality that they have. And what they'll do is they'll present this personality, and in the beginning you're like, ugh, really? You're if you're like watch religiously the way I did, you're like, oh, this new character, all right, I don't know. But then they hit you with the same character the following week, and then the following week, and the following week, and you start getting conditioned to want and expect the exact same thing. So they'll have the same catchphrase, the same look, the same entrance, and so they train you and they condition you to get used to that and want that.
Yeah.
And so when they deviate from it, you feel like, whoa.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, I need to stay consistent. Because I have a lot of comedy friends that are constantly changing their look, changing their cadence, changing what they're doing in their act. And I'm like, give yourself a chance to succeed doing what you're doing before you abandon ship.
That's so good.
Give it a chance. Give it
Yeah.
a chance. And because I'm all for change and doing what's best to make it grow. But you need to get, because I had one friend, he used to always cut his hair. He had his hair really long, and then he cut his hair short. He's like, oh, I'm just going for a better look. People only remember the dude with the long hair.
Right.
Why did you do this?
Right.
Once you get to a place where people know you, then you can do whatever you want. You want to have a beard like Jonah Hill, not have a beard like Jonah Hill. You want to be big like Jonah Hill. You want to be thin like Jonah Hill. It's Jonah Hill.
Right.
So there's no question about that. But if he did that before when no one knew him, then it's like 8 different people that just, So
smart.
try to stay consistent with it. And so, like I said, I branded the fluffy thing back then. I stayed consistent with the shorts and the look. So, big guy, Hawaiian shirt, shorts, fluffy. Was anybody rocking shorts on? These are little things that stand out. So, how do you remember that one guy? It's the guy in the shorts.
Yeah.
How many comics were wearing shorts? Everybody back in the day was wearing the what do they call this? Like the sport coat, the
Oh, like a
Seinfeld,
blazer.
yeah,
Yeah.
and jeans. A certain look, and it's like, okay, what?
You're right.
What are you doing to make yourself different to stand out?
Yeah, you're so right.
So, of course, what's happening on stage, and then what's happening off stage. Everyone was just jumping in their car and taking off. Whereas my show was done, but it wasn't done. Now phase 2. Now we go outside and we do the meet and greets. My meet and greets would take twice as long as the show.
Wow, yeah. I understand that.
And then the people were like, oh, he's going to hang out. I go,
Right.
yeah, I'll
Yeah.
hang out.
Yeah, because it's like the over-deliver thing. You're like, you guys showed up for me. I'm about to show up for you so hard. I'm going to hold space for whatever, have VIP moments at my events. And it's like hour and a half, whatever. And you have the team of people who are like trying. And I'm like, oh, hell no. Like Helen drove here from 2 states away. We're going to talk for 30 minutes about her grandbaby and how excited she is for that. Because I don't know. I remember what it felt like when one person showed up. So if this many people want to be here, I'm going to be here with them. I vibe with that so hard.
Yeah,
And
so I did that for so many years.
Yeah.
And last week I was in Phoenix, and there was I was doing Q&A at the end of my show. So I did like a 90-minute set, and then I did Q&A. So anybody that wants to ask questions, and this one girl goes, you signed a thing for me in the year 2000 at a show and blah, blah, blah. Like she starts naming things, and she's like, do you remember that? I go, it was 23 years ago? Yeah, sure. And then she still had the paper, and she brought it up to the stage, and she showed me that I had signed this piece of. She held on to that piece of paper,
Yeah.
and it had signatures of 2 other comics on it that had already died. And I'm like, oh my God,
damn.
And I remember those comics, and I remember like, wow, when I saw the paper, I was like, oh shoot, I think I might remember this.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was cool that she saved that way back then, when I wasn't a name, when I wasn't someone that, okay, but that was during that time when I was just like, all right, I'll hang out and, see what happens.
That's incredible. Well, I mean, it sounds like getting to do something like the stadium, like you were still having the I don't know, the results of all of those years of showing up for people, and then they're showing up for you in this incredible way, which is so inspiring to see.
Yeah, no,
So
it was awesome. And again, I felt like it was a celebration for everyone. It was like very much it was a group thing that made it happen, and I was very grateful.
oh, well, I'm
Very
excited to
grateful.
see what happens next. I hope it's not, I hope I don't see a special for a while. I hope I just see like you on social media having fun and doing silly things this year.
There,
'Cause-
there's going to be pressure for another special soon, but like I'm going to enjoy these next 6 months of just
Good.
going back to just being a comic at a club.
Yeah, that's sick. If we want to see you perform at a club, is that a thing, or you just show up and surprise people?
No, it's not on my website because all these dates are just they're random
Yeah.
spots. I do have two shows that I'm going to be doing in Vegas in April
Rad.
at the
You and Adele,
Cosmopolitan.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, she's opening for
I'd
you.
go see her again. I would go see her again.
Okay, so Vegas, April. That's where, if we want to see you, that's where
That's
we're gonna go.
probably the best bet.
So incredible. I will tell you, my son, who is 14, has never thought I am as cool as I am right now sitting with you. So I'm really grateful for the time.
What's your son's name?
Sawyer?
Sawyer. Sawyer, what's up, dude? It's Gabriel Iglesias. I'm here. I'm hanging out with your mom. I know that doesn't sound right, but we're cool. We're on a couch. No, but yeah, it still doesn't sound right. So look, man, I just want to say hi. Hope you're well. Your mama cool. She's we're just here hanging out talking. I don't know if she's gonna let you watch this interview or not. I don't think I said anything bad. So
Nothing.
yeah, okay,
Nothing
cool.
bad.
So anyways, enjoy it. Hope you're well, and if she loved you, she would have brought you. Just saying. All right, Sawyer, be good.
Thank you. That was incredible. Thank you so much for the time, brother.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
The thing that I look forward to the most in my job is, especially with concerts, getting in the room with my band and my background singers and us just having a day where we just sing. It's not for performance or the concerts coming up. It's just, will this song work? Let's see what we can do with it. Let's make it different. Let's make it fun. Let's just do it for ourselves.